So I don't want to say my second system, but early on Atari 2600 NES, my third system, believe it or not, took a while for me to get. I was like literally in high school. So I went
Yeah.
from being, was it 1980? Let's call it 1986 where I got the Nintendo. High school for me, I didn't start high school until 1991. So I went
Okay.
from 86 to 91 just playing the Nintendo. And of course, arcades when I went to arcades, but it was the Sega Genesis. Did you own a Sega Genesis?
I never owned a Sega. We in the UK we didn't call them Genesis. We called them Sega Mega Drive.
Yeah, that's what most people refer to them as, like the Mega Drive. But
Yeah. But I remember like because my mum and dad had divorced, my stepbrother had a Sega Mega Drive, and I used to play that around his. I used to play Sonic. I used to hate again the timer running out, like the stress induced from that, like crazy, absolutely crazy. But
to me, I was gonna say, yeah, finish.
I was gonna say that wasn't was that like a 16-bit? Was it? It wasn't.
No, it was 64-bit. Like that. No, it wasn't. You're right. It was 16-bit. You're right. It was.
Yeah.
It went from 8. Nintendo was 8, and that was 16. That was the big to do. That it went from 8 to 16. It was it's so much powerful. It's gonna be so much better. It was good, but to me, it was still on par with the Nintendo.
Yeah, I didn't think it was much of an upgrade, because I remember like going around and be like, it's not, this new console's not as great, and I didn't really. It kind of felt like I felt like the controllers felt really plasticky. Didn't think they were as better built, and like the console as well felt really plastic.
To me, the upgrade for the Sega Genesis compared to the NES was sports games, because I played a lot of sports games. On the NES, I played everything. Like I was the Three Stooges, Zelda, adventure games, sports games. I played them all. The big advantage was for the sports games, because we went for games like original Nintendo games like baseball. There was a great baseball game called Baseball Stars for the NES. Major League Baseball for the NES was great. Tecmo Bowl was another great football game. There was games for the NHL hockey called NHL Hockey. But when you got to the Sega Genesis, the sports game became something else. There was a great series called, I think it was still called NHL Hockey, or it was Gretzky versus something, or NHLPA, or whatever the hell it was called. Everybody knows the game I'm talking about. For some reason, it's blanking right now. But playing ice hockey on the Sega Genesis using Wayne Gretzky or the Chicago Blackhawks, I played that from high school all the way through college. That's how good these sports games were. So there was John Madden. That's where Madden first started for me. The Sega Genesis, I believe. So, and I've always been a huge Madden guy up until now. A couple of years ago, I stopped playing, but that's a game I've consistently played throughout my adulthood. So the sports games for the Sega Genesis is where it really got my attention. Other people will talk about Sonic. I had Sonic, but like it was an okay game. It wasn't like a Legend of Zelda to me or Super Mario Brothers. It didn't have that type of feel. It was different, but I never got as excited as I did per those other games.
Yeah, there's the like sports games for me didn't really we'll probably get to the PlayStation, but I think that we had like a game called FIFA, which is like the football game, like the soccer game. That was my first like proper sports game, I would say.
Where did you go to next outside of like handheld?
So outside of handheld, it would have been the PlayStation 1. So I remember, again, Christmas morning, my brother would always, my brother was a bit older, so he lived like with his dad and stuff like that. He would always bring his PlayStation 1 over and we'd play FIFA together, which is the football game. And that's when like my love of football really started to kind of happen. And then like I think like my mum saw me play it a lot, and then so like one Christmas I remember waking up in the morning, going downstairs and then opening this big box, and I was like, couldn't believe that my mum had knew to buy me a PlayStation. Like it was it's probably one of the best presents she ever bought me. And like I just remember getting it, and I got like I got FIFA, obviously. I got Abe's Odyssey, if you remember that. You know, that little man that trying to escape his little prison thing. It's a really good game.
So let me stop right there. I never had a PlayStation 1. I had a friend who had one. I was in college at the time, and I wasn't a believer at the time that PlayStation was going to be good when it came out. And boy, was I wrong. Because I had an N64 when I was in college, and I played that. But I wasn't a believer that PlayStation was going to do what it did. And then until I went over to a friend's house and we were playing the WWF wrestling game. When I saw that game on the PlayStation
Warzone.
1.
Was it Warzone?
Yes, it was Warzone.
Yeah.
That to me, I saw the graphics and I saw I had felt the gameplay and I saw the entrances music for the characters. I'm like, holy shit. Wow. And I was blown away.
Yeah, that was one of the games that came with it as well for me. And that's the only wrestling game I've ever owned. And I gotta say it was brilliant. Like awesome. I didn't grow up liking wrestling, right? I was into it all. But I just remember Stone Cold Steve Austin was on the cover and he was like,
yep.
And like it was just a great beat 'em up game. Like, you know, I think you could pick up chairs on it, I think.
You could do everything. You get the finishing moves that you could do. I don't know how to do them when I was playing my friend. And of course he knew all the fucking moves and he was giving me the rock bottom and all this stuff, stunners. I was getting murdered, but I was so impressed that they could do what they did for this game. I said, I had to go out and get one. Of course I didn't. I was finishing up college at the time. So I waited. But as soon as the PlayStation 2 came out, we'll get to that conversation and how hard that console was to get in the beginning because of the success of the PlayStation 1. I was just shocked how good Sony jumped into this, era of video games and how dominant they were.
Yeah, and I just remember as well, like when I got that PlayStation 1, I got it in the morning of Christmas morning, set it up before my dad picked me up to take me over to his to see that side of the family. And I was there for like 2 or 3 days over at my dad's side of the family, away from the PlayStation. And I was the whole entire time, all I was thinking was, I can't wait to go home to play my PlayStation. It sounds terrible. It sounds absolutely terrible. But like, I just remember having that in the back of my mind the whole entire Christmas. And now with my own kids now, like we kind of stopped doing this now because I really enjoy having Christmas together, like Christmas dinner and stuff, and then we'll see family on the evening. Yep. But like we used to like go and spend Christmas Day like at families elsewhere, and the kids would just have a ton of presents here that would just be sitting here until like the next day. And I just said to my wife Gemma, I said like if it was me, like I'd be wanting to play with this. Like it's really unfair to give up the kids all these things and then like they don't play them for like 2 days.
Yep.
So we open all the presents and then they just play with them until lunch. We all sit down like a civilized family for lunch, and then they play with them for a bit, and then we go and see family. Yeah,
I'm the same way. When I got married like 7 years ago. My wife had 2 small kids. I said to her first day, I said, listen, we're on the same page. I don't like going anywhere on any holiday, but Christmas especially, like I want to be home. And I do a lot of the cooking. My wife does too, but we don't want to go. And even when they're adults, I still like let the kids enjoy the time, whatever they're going to get. Let's enjoy our time in the morning. I don't want to rush through anything and have to go anywhere. Like I don't mind staying home and cooking, having a drink, relaxing until everybody comes over later. But you're right, man. Being home on Christmas morning, if you have kids, it's like nothing else. Because you remember that as a kid, you didn't want to go anywhere.
Yeah, it's like, not to be cliche or anything, but that those mornings are quite magical. And like I remember most of the big Christmas presents I got as a kid, like they're like core memories, like and when you're out at you like myself, Lawrence, you would be going to like collectible fairs and stuff like that. You'll see those toys at those events, and they're like they instantly transport you back to being 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years of age, and you're like, oh man, that was a good Christmas, man. That was a good memory.
I mean, you and I both shared stories today about Christmas morning, waking up and getting these amazing gifts, that we still have those memories today that we're kind of holding on to. So that should tell everybody out there, how much these things meant to us, but not only that, how much that meant that we got to play them that morning, right? Imagine like if I got Mike Tyson's punch out and said, yeah, an hour later, let's go. We got to go, whatever. I would have said, not going anywhere. All right, so PlayStation 1, back to that now. You told me any other games they had a lot of games. PlayStation 1 was the next console after the NES, which had a ton of games. When I say immense amount of games, they were loaded because that console lasted for a really long time. What other games did you play?
Final Fantasy 7, Final Fantasy 8, Final Fantasy 9. I'm trying to remember other games. I really got into like Dragon Ball Z, and then they started like Dragon Ball Z games on there. To be fair, what I probably will say as well is that the PlayStation 1 was my first introduction into modded games consoles. Mm-hmm. Like I don't know what you guys would have called them, but over here people used to say, "Is your PlayStation chipped?" Because you used to put like I can't remember what it was. You used to stick a thing in the back, and then like it would play like copied games.
It's a hard drive. So yeah. I was going to bring it up, but my first experience with that was the PlayStation 2, where the hard drive would come out and you can install a brand new hard drive loaded with all these games on it. And yes, we call it modded. I'm not familiar with the term chip. Maybe that's just a I think that was just British street slang. Yeah, if that's a word. Yeah. That was the first introduction. I remember my dad saying, "Oh, my mate can chip your PlayStation," and my dad took my PlayStation away from me. I was like, "What's going like what?" And it came back, and he came back with like a ton of games, like, and then it almost kind of like ruined it because it was like spoilt for choice, like because I'd be playing games that I probably would never play. Like I wouldn't go out and buy the copy of it, if you know what I mean. Yeah. Do you remember like what year that was? It's going to be hard to remember, but like around about.
Oh, it's a great question, man. It's got to be probably around 99, not 2000, maybe.
So this has got to be the same exact time that I had my PlayStation 2, around that time frame, and I got that modded as well. So it's got to be around the same time. Because I just remember that because I was home from college and I graduated college in 2000. So I remember being home and finally getting the thing. And I had to do it myself. I had to buy you had somebody do it, but I actually had to buy the hard drive with all the games on it and then install it myself, which was a whole nother situation. Thank God I was pretty handy, but around the same time frame.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I remember my friend had a Nintendo 64. And I'd go around and play GoldenEye at his. And he was
the best game. The best game on that system by far. I remember in college just spending hours in between classes playing that shit.
Yeah, with the golden gun and the paint gun, it was just hiding in lockers. Like it was setting bombs off, like you watch. It was so cool. Like, and I remember he was like, "Oh, do you think like over the summer, do you think you want to borrow my N64 and I'll borrow your PlayStation, like just swap it just for the summer?" And I was like, yeah, to be fair, I've not really got much to play. Like I want to play on the PlayStation. I really want to play like GoldenEye and Mario 64. So he swapped over the summer, and then we swapped back, and then that Christmas, like I got like I think I want to say it was like a acrylic green Nintendo 64, because I asked one, even though they were like a few years old.
But you know what? For some reason, I remember seeing a video recently about the green one being really rare and valuable.
Yeah.
Somebody correct me if you remember that, but I could have sworn I just saw that. It is, right?
Yeah. It definitely is. And I think at the time, I was really pissed off because I just wanted the normal grey, like dark grey looking one. And so I was really pissed off with it, but then I ended up having to trade that in, like a few years later to get a PlayStation 2. What are you drinking there?
It's a White Claw.
Ah, so I saw like a meme the other day where people just thought that White Claw was a energy drink.
Really?
Yeah.
No, there's alcohol in it. It's actually pretty good because they make a lot of spiked seltzers, but I find like a lot of them, like the Truly and a couple others, are too sweet. But the White Claw is kind of like, it's not sweet at all. It's very tame. There's not much alcohol in it. It's only 100 calories. So
Well, today's episode is brought to you by White Claw.
yeah, White Claw, I'm out there if you need me. Just you'll see the retainer at the end of the video.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so PlayStation 2. I'm going to give you not a wild story, but my story with the PlayStation 2, and then we can get into yours, is that when this thing came out, if you did not pre-order it like forever in advance, you were not getting it. It was like impossible to find. I actually had to go on eBay to purchase my PlayStation 2, and I paid like nearly double for it. I hate to be an asshole, but at this point, I was out of college. I was working, so I was making money. I was still living home with my parents. So I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I want this thing. I wasn't waiting anymore, and I got mine from eBay. What about you?
So I remember, I mentioned earlier that, I had to trade my N64. So I remember my sister's brother, my sister's boyfriend, who ended up becoming my brother-in-law, he bought a PS2 straight off, like at release, and he didn't know anything about games. He just had like a really decent job for his age, and he's like, I'm like, he bought any toy that came out. He was like, I'm going to buy that, because I can. Yeah. And I remember him buying it, and I was like, to my sister, I said, can I come round and play it? She's like, yeah, sure, yeah. So I'd get on my BMX and I'd go, because she lived with him, and I'd ride all the way up to theirs, and I'd play it for the whole weekend. And like, I remember he had like Grand Theft Auto 3. I can't remember. I'm trying to remember what games he had. I want to say he had like Need for Speed. I can't remember what one of the first racing games was.
I had Need for Speed, and that was a great game. You could, pick the car you wanted to start with, and then you'd get like mods and stuff that you'd add on to the thing. Oh, that was I forgot about that game. That was a great game.
Yeah, and I remember him like, basically he just bought it. He didn't really play it, and I just remember saying, is there any way that I can have it? And he was like, oh, you can borrow it for a bit. And I was like, so I borrowed it for a bit, and then in the end, I just went and traded in my N64 once because they were really difficult to get a hold of in here as well.
Yeah.
And after about 6 or 7 months, I was able to get hold of them, and I absolutely loved it. Like, but with the introduction of like that bigger memory card as well, like,
it was 8. I think it was 8 gigs. I think my memory was 8. I'm not sure.
But what the best thing about it was what was totally like I'm trying to think of the word now, but what really drew me to it as well was it played DVDs.
Yeah.
Like them throwing that DVD player in there, because DVD players at the time were really expensive.
Yep.
So for me, it was like catch 22, because it was basically like you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone here. Get the PlayStation 2 and get a DVD player.
Yep. Was it Blu-ray back then, or was it just DVD? I don't remember.
It was just DVD for that. I remember that. Yeah, and that for me like completely changed the way, like, the home entertainment, like you could do both things. It was great.
And what made the PS2 even better, I believe it was backwards compatible to the PS1, right? You could still play PS1 games on it.
Yeah. So
that was huge.
I've still got a PS2, and I play both PS2 and PS1 games on it. There's no point even firing up I've got the PlayStation 1 as well, but there's no point. Just use the PS2, because the PS2 controller is better.
Yeah, way better.
Yeah.
It just looked better. It was one of the cooler looking systems too, all black. Compared to the original PlayStation, was kind of like, gray, like every other system, like the NES. The Sega Genesis was black, the Mega Drive. And then you had Super Nintendo, which was gray. N64 was darker gray. Even the Sega Dreamcast, which I actually had. I was looking at the few people that had that system. It was really great underutilized system for the power that it had. But
Yep.
not a lot of games, not a lot of people got into that system. But yeah, that was the first like really cool looking console.
Yeah, this I remember the Sega Dreamcast. I remember that it didn't have like access to the internet. It was like one of the first that you could like search the internet on, which was just again mind blowing. But again, there wasn't in this country. There wasn't very many people with it.
No,
But
I don't think there were many people in the US with it. I was one of the few.
But I remember, so a few weeks back, I went to like a gaming store and did a video on it. And
it's a good video.
Thank you, thanks, buddy. And I got a few messages afterwards asking do you know if they did Dreamcasts or sold Dreamcasts? And I was thinking, but I had like 3 people mention it, and one of them was like a good mate of mine. And I'm thinking, that's probably like people are just wanting to get a hold. They must be super rare because there weren't very many of them out there.
It's funny because at the time I didn't know a lot of people who had them, but now I don't even hear anybody talking about that system. It was very, very powerful. A lot of great games, not a ton, but like my first experience with, I don't know if you ever play NBA 2K. I'm a sports game guy, and that was the first time that game came out, was on that system, on the Sega Dreamcast. Yeah. And me and my friends in college, I had this in college, we'd play all the time on that thing. And like that game on that system was one of the best games I've ever played. It was NBA 2K. It was the original, and it was such a good game. I just remember the controllers were really wacky looking. It was like
huge.
They were like, it was like this, not like a normal game. You'd be like this.
Yeah.
But it was like this. So it was a little weird, but it was the first thing that I remember that had dual, joysticks, like the little thumb things.
Yeah.
So
I was gonna say, it didn't have that like little thing that you popped into the controller. That was weird.
It was very weird, but it was a decent system for what it was. The power of that system, and again, another console with an immense amount of games. That one lasted quite a while as well, the PlayStation 2, because it had, not only did it have games, it had so many options of things that you could do. Like we talked about the hard drive and modding the system later on.
Yeah.
But after that, where did you go?
After the PlayStation 2, it would have been the Xbox.
Okay.
Like I alluded to earlier in the pod, like I remember my mate. I would have been about 16. And we're in our final year of high school, and the Xbox comes out. I don't know if did you ever play Halo?
Yeah, of course. I didn't have an Xbox because I had a PS2, but I had an Xbox 360.
Okay. So
I played it on that.
So the original. So I was 16. It's my final year of school, and me and my mate got an Xbox. And he would bring his over to my house because I had a relatively big house in comparison. So what we used to do was I bought like a 100-meter Ethernet cable, like an RG45 cable. So we'd run the cable from one Xbox to the other, and we'd be able to do 4 versus 4 on Halo. Yeah. And we would do that for like, my mum used to hate it because she would come into like my room, or she'd go downstairs to the living room where the other one was, and my mum would be like, it stinks of teenage boys in here, it's disgusting. There'd be like like food wrappers everywhere, and like empty bottles, and it would just stink of like BO or cheesy feet or whatever, or farts, you know. And we were all just like, and I don't know if you ever played, if you ever played it like on split screen, 4 screen with people as your enemies, they could see the screen, and it used to really make me laugh because you would like get your sniper shot like lining up for somebody who you're against, but they're watching you on the screen, and all of a sudden while they can see that, they just start jumping. Yeah. And you're like, stop looking at my screen. Stop looking at my screen.
That was the thing they didn't really think out too well back in the day, right? Setting up the system that way.
Yeah, it was insane. And we like, you know, it was kind of like in our school, it was like, oh, let's all go around James's and play Halo on Friday or Saturday, and we absolutely loved it. We used to have tournaments, and then obviously Xbox Live got introduced, and that was probably, I want to say, like the most I've ever been impressed with something to do with gaming at that time. Like, it was innovative, or is that the word?
It is innovative.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this, because we're going to talk about online play next. I remember the PlayStation 2 did have online play, but when I tell you connecting to the servers was a disaster, it was a disaster. I told you before, I'm a big sports guy, so I played Madden my entire life, ever since the first one on the Sega Genesis. And getting to the servers, there would be so much lag. I'd get kicked off of games. But back then, if you're a Madden fan, anybody listening, so if you got kicked off the server, even if you're winning, you're taking a loss on the online scoreboards. So if you get kicked off, you're taking a loss. No matter, I could be up 30-5. That's not a real football score, but you know what I mean? And you're taking a loss because you got kicked off the server because your connection wasn't good. That drove me nuts because I was so into it. But I guess anybody who plays sports games, whatever, but if you're not, I guess it really doesn't matter. I don't know if they had scores on these, you know, role-playing games or side-by-side games.
No, yeah. I remember the PlayStation 2. I didn't even attempt to connect it to the internet because I just knew, I'd heard that it never worked.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. You said you're Xbox Live. Did you prefer Xbox over PlayStation at that point?
Oh, that's a really tough question because no. I would probably say no.
All right. So what I want to do now is I want you to count down from the beginning till now all the systems you had. Can you name all of them?
Yeah. So Nintendo Entertainment System, Game Boy, had a Game Boy Color as well in between, Game Boy Advance, PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, Xbox 360, PlayStation 3, Xbox One, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5.
And that's where we're at right now, right?
That's where we're at. And you know, as an adult, I bought a Super Nintendo because I want to play it. But that I think that's pretty much it, I think.
All right. That's a pretty good list. But let me share mine because it gets a little wild. Ready?
Wild. Go on then.
I think it's wild, but there's one of them I haven't even mentioned today. Atari 2600.
Yep.
Nintendo Entertainment System.
Yep.
Sega Genesis, Master Drive, whatever you want to call it, Mega Drive, whatever you want to call it. TurboGrafx 16 was the one that I haven't mentioned. I'll come back to it after I get through my list.
I've never even heard of it.
Okay, you're going to do some checking it out after this because I'm going to tell you some cool stories. TurboGrafx 16, Super Nintendo, Nintendo 64, Sega Dreamcast, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5. As you can see, once I got that PlayStation 2, I never went back. I'm sorry, we're going to throw Xbox 360 in there as well because I had a PlayStation 2, but I bought an Xbox 360 because some of my friends didn't have PlayStation and they had Xbox, so I had to buy that system in order to play certain games with them as well.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right. So TurboGrafx 16.
Go on.
First of all, if you have heard of this system, I want you to comment down below because, again, not a great list of games, but they had some really great games that not a lot of people played, which were great. So check this out. When I was a kid, I had a friend who always would go to Taiwan. Okay. So he'd always bring back like these cool, like Japanese games that we didn't even hear of here in the United States. So like before the NES came out, he brought back the Famicom. So I knew what the NES was going to be when it came out. It's just wild. But he also had the Japanese version of TurboGrafx 16. I don't remember what the hell it was called, but I had exposure to some of these games before they came out, like Bonk's Adventure. Check out the game Bonk's Adventure. A lot of the other games are kind of stupid. There was don't know, it was a baseball game. There's definitely one other sports game I played, but I played Bonk's Adventure a lot. And it was like a disc. It wasn't a CD disc. It wasn't a cartridge. It was like a flat disc that you put in, and that's how the game would start. It's like a plastic disc. It's almost like a flat cartridge that went into the slot.
Okay.
Go check out Bonk's Adventure, Bonks. It was like this little like caveman with a giant head, and he would kill his enemies or like go through all the stages and just like kill the enemies with his head. It was one of the funnest games I've ever played in my life.
They did port it on like Game Boy as well and stuff. So
you know what it is.
No, I've just googled it.
Oh yeah, so it's definitely gone to other systems because to TurboGrafx 16, that was the only system. I don't believe they came out with another one, but someone correct me if I'm wrong. It didn't do well in the US, but the Japanese version was pretty big for him to bring this back. And there were other games that I played, but it was such a long time ago, I don't remember them. But it was a wild system.
Wow, you learn something new every day. Not heard of it, but thanks for letting me know.
That's something I would like to rebuy. If I saw one in the wild for a cheap price, I would definitely buy it.
Is it like a big black box?
I don't even remember, dude. I don't remember the system. I remember the Japanese version was a small white box, and you put the cartridges. It was black, but I don't remember how big it was. So final thoughts here. Out of all the systems you've owned, out of all the games that you've played, what's your favorite system to this day?
So it's got to be, I mean, we talked about it a lot today, so it's got to be the NES. It's probably my favorite because it's my most fondest and it's like my first. But as I got to appreciate games growing older now, I kind of feel like the best games and the catalogue were probably on the Super Nintendo, because I kind of feel like Chrono Trigger for me is probably one of the best games ever made. Like the story, the artwork of the game, the graphics, and like the music even in it. So I think Super Nintendo probably got the best catalogue of the best catalogue of games. But NES definitely holds a special place in my heart. I don't want to say it's not the NES because it's hard. It's hard. But Super Nintendo, I think, is the best.
To me, I could still go back and play some of those NES games. I've said it before. That's my favorite system as well. I could still go back and play these games now and still have fun playing them because they were some of the games were hard, but they were simple at the same time. You know what I mean? It wasn't too intricate. It just had so many games that like I could pick up right now and still remember what I was doing. Whereas if I go pick up a new game now, I'm starting from scratch. Even if I played the games before, it's like, all right, like how do I do this? How do I do that? And at my age now, I'm not going to do that, but I could still pick up a Super Mario's 1, 2, or 3 and know what the hell I'm doing, you know? If you'd like to become a sponsor here on the Mighty Rewind podcast, make sure you reach out at the Mighty Rewind podcast at gmail.com.